MISA, aka the Barefoot Assassin, is the bassist for the hard-hitting all-girl rock band BAND-MAID. She has a commanding presence on stage and really shines when you're able to hear her clearly. Unfortunately, sometimes the bass gets overlooked as the lead guitar, vocals, and even drums just naturally sit on top of the mix, cutting through with more presence than the bass. But that doesn't stop MISA from putting in maximum effort and playing something engaging and fascinating at every turn. So today, I'm going to take a deep dive into MISA's performance on the song Warning by BAND-MAID. Thanks to BAND-MAID Prime, which I highly recommend, I was able to see video of only MISA's performance. Of course, I won't be showing that here, but I will use what I learned from watching it alongside the official live performance video and my own attempted recreations to try to help you hear more of what she's doing and hopefully help us all to appreciate her talent even more than we already do. And just as an acknowledgement, I have heard that Konami does the majority of the composition for the band, including the bass, so credit where credit is due. But regardless, MISA is the one performing this show after show. So it's time to show some appreciation for the Barefoot Assassin. If you're excited to see this, pound that like button and ring that buddy bell, and let's jump into this. What's up, quarter pounders and maniacs? This is Editing Wave Powder. I just wanted to jump in real quick and give a couple shout outs to some people who shared my last video on Akane. I really appreciate that. First, Soji from the BAND-MAID East Coast fan base. Thank you so much for sharing that over on your Facebook group. And also, I want to thank the Reddit user StarPlatinum98 for posting my video on the BAND-MAID subreddit. That was also really cool. Go check both of those out if you haven't yet. I also want to apologize for the weird camera angle I chose for this whole video. Obviously, this is a better camera angle for my face. I look weird when the camera's above my monitor. So this will be what the future of my videos looks like. I'm finally starting to figure out lighting and all that. So thank you for bearing with me as I try to figure out how to make good videos. And now, here we go. Right from the start, MISA slams into the song with a chugging hammer-on bass line, complete with a slide up and a little connective bass lick before finishing the chord progression. Now, I need to warn you, MISA's playing on a 5-string bass for this song, and I don't have a 5-string bass, so I'll be doing my best possible recreation of this bass line, playing any notes that happen to land on the low 5th string an octave higher, meaning they're 2 frets and 2 strings higher on the neck. And even though I say higher, from your perspective looking at the video, it actually means down. Because of the way the bass is positioned, lower on the neck actually means higher notes. And same for the strings. Now, the thing that really stood out to me when watching the beginning of this performance is that there are 4 total passages in the intro before the verse, and yet MISA doesn't play the same thing twice. She varies her riff in each passage, really giving the song variety and a fresh feeling, even in something as simple as the intro. So buckle in, folks. Here are all 4 of the passages MISA is playing, adjusted for playing on a 4-string bass. Ichi. Ni. San. Yan. Okay. As you can see, MISA is pretty fearless when it comes to throwing bass licks in between the progressions. These are not easy to play by any stretch of the imagination, especially with MISA's bass tech, Jim Beam, around, and yet she performs a flawless execution, even in a live setting. Now, the verse is pretty straightforward at first, just chugging on the G flat or F sharp root note, then sliding up to the D, before finishing with an interesting lick where she first goes up to the 5th of the D, the high A, forming a power chord harmony with Miku's rhythm guitar root chord, but then creating a dissonant feel by dropping 1 half step or 1 note to an A flat, which is naturally dissonant with the D. Then up to a high E, which is 1 whole step or 2 notes higher than the D, and again, very dissonant. this dissonance creates a really cool sound that is fascinating in the rock setting, because splitting the dissonance between two different instruments and octaves, it makes it less abrasive and more just edgy and really freaking cool. In the next phrase, she returns to the G flat chugging, but then finishes it by adding an accented A note every 3 notes. So she's going from playing G flat the whole time to playing 1 A and then 2 G flats, repeating several times to finish up the verse and leading into the pre-chorus. Now A is 1.5 steps or 3 notes higher than the G flat, which is the interval that creates a minor chord. Technically, A is the minor third of G flat, and since Miku is most likely playing a G flat minor, MISA is accenting the fact that it's a minor chord by playing different notes from within the chord itself. In this case, the root and the third. Whoops, dropped my pick. See, she can flip her pick and it's not even a problem. I can barely hold on to it when I'm not trying to flip it. Anyway, the pre-chorus is once again pretty straightforward, but then when we get to that part I referred to as a rock, reggae, Stewart Copeland metal fusion in my Akane video, MISA plays a very interesting triplet riff that really adds to the offbeat feeling of this part in juxtaposition to the other parts of the song surrounding it. I think it's really cool that that's actually a triplet, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was hard to count. But anyway, even the chorus, where most bassists would take a breather and just let the notes ring wide open, MISA takes command over the foundation of the chorus, playing notes that are even more busy than before. Now there's a lot going on here. So again, MISA plays with the notes on the G flat minor spectrum here, sliding up to the A and giving it a jazzy feel by throwing an A flat in there, before sliding up to the A and A flat in another octave higher. Then for the D, she starts on the low D, which is on the 5th string that I don't have, and slides up an octave again for the higher D. Finally finishing the progression with the E and walking up the major scale from there. Now interestingly, this major scale of the E in this part is the same notes that were dissonant with the D during the verse. I listened as closely as possible during the verse and I couldn't hear the guitar changing up to the E in that part, so I still think those notes were meant to be dissonant. But this time around, the rhythm guitar is playing the E as the foundational chord, so the A and A flat this time are a major third and a 4th interval harmony, so they're not dissonant with the guitar anymore. So prepare yourself for a small tangent involving Deep Purple about what a 4th interval is. If you don't want to hear it, skip to the next time code entitled Back to MISA.
Now, the 4th interval is basically a power chord without the root note, similar to what you hear in the intro of Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water. But in that context, the root note is actually the higher note between that diatonic chord right there, which just means there's 2 notes in it. Whereas in the context of a 4th harmony, the lower note is the root note.
In Smoke on the Water, the bass comes in playing G, when the guitar's lowest note is D with a G above it. This is what the guitar plays, a D and a G, and the bass comes in playing G. But when it's an actual 4th harmony, the bass would play the D along with that. So it's the same interval with the chords, but different context, different chord. Here's that chord with the D bass note, and here it is with the G. So that's a 4th, that's a power chord. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, back to MISA. She's using the notes within the scale of the rhythm guitar's chord to create a very interesting backdrop for the song. For the second half of the chorus, she slides from the G flat all the way up to the higher octave A, so that's a whoop, A and A flat, then back down to the low A to follow the chord progression before sliding back up to the high A for an octave slide. But instead of going down to the A flat this time, she plays up to the B. So instead of she goes up, then finishes this part of the chorus with octaves in D and E, playing one last high A flat, which again, while in E, are part of the same major scale. This next part again repeats the same progression twice, but MISA's phrasing is different each time. For the first D and E, she slides up to the A and A flat on the 3 of each count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But the second time around, she does those little accented slide notes on the 2 of each count. And she also swaps the octave slides to the first 2 times around, giving it a different feel. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. I can't really count that, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2.
It says you could have network connectivity problems.
1, 2, 3, 4. That took way too many takes. Now, what I love about that is how the listener may notice that the song has a different feeling between those 2 parts, but because the bass can so easily blend into the background, some people may not notice exactly what is creating that shift in feel. Speaking of which, this chorus still isn't over. The third time around, she does an octave slide in D, but accents it with a D flat to D, then does an octave slide with the E, but instead of going down to E flat like the D, she goes up to the G flat, 2 notes higher than the E. Then before finally ending the chorus with a D octave slide, then an E power chord played from the highest note down to the root note. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now, finally, for the first time in the whole entire song, MISA repeats something on the bass, playing the same riff she played for the very first passage of the song intro. But don't worry, on the second passage of this part, she once again shakes it up, matching Konami's E major scale riff leading into the second verse. Like that. So in case you didn't hear it, this little riff before the second verse is actually the same interval as the bass in the intro of Sweet Child of Mine. So it's like... Actually in Sweet Child of Mine it's... But same intervals. Just an interesting little tidbit. Now this next part, I don't know if it's really a second verse because it's so different from the first verse, but MISA's chugging the G flat straight through for 2 bars before sliding up an octave and doing the same hammer-ons from the E to G flat as the intro, but an octave higher. Then on the last rep, she plays an A to B hammer-on. Very fascinating. And this next part is again very intriguing to me because this little octave riff she does at the end here actually reminds me of that sweet bass line from the Mario soundtrack. She plays octaves from D to B to A. So see if you can hear what I mean. Now this next part speaks for itself. What the absolute heck? MISA slaps the heck out of me when it comes to bass playing abilities.
You don't say.
But I'm going to try to slap what she's playing. Then I'll play it with a pick so you can get a better idea of the notes she's actually playing. At least as far as I could tell by watching. 12,000 takes later. Okay, I'll try to do this. I can't actually play that, so I cannot believe she's playing all that while at the same time she's holding her pick with her pointer finger, like this. The pointer finger is such an essential part of slapping for me personally. Like, that's what not that I'm a good slapper, but I have no idea how she does it, that effortless pick flip, but that's what makes her so special. And even after all that, she still comes in with a rippin' bass lick to complement that really long 4-measure drum fill Akane is playing here. Man, this song's exhausting. I don't know how she plays this every single time they play this song. Absolutely wild. That said, I've never been so relieved in my life to hear someone repeating something in a musical composition. Breaking down MISA's bass in this song was one of the hardest things I've done so far on this channel. Maybe the hardest. I can't wait for the Konami video. But the second chorus is mostly the same, except for the very last lick. Now it goes up the major E scale. Instead of 2, 3, 4. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty simple, but I love the end of this bridge. The bass cuts out until the very end, where before playing the first A note of this little walk down riff I'm about to play, MISA slides into it from the G flat 1, 2, 3. I just love those little touches. But then comes Konami's solo, so MISA should be pretty easy to follow, right? Okay. This speaks for itself. And again, if you go watch this on BAND-MAID Prime, you'll see how absolutely effortlessly she flips the pick up under her finger to slap this part. I'll just try to play it for you here real slow so you can hear what's going on more clearly. I'm definitely not playing it slow because I'm just not capable of playing it that fast. Oh boy. Again, this is a very simplified version of what she's playing because the slapping techniques she's using are something I cannot replicate. So the rest of this bass in the guitar solo, I just cannot do justice to, but I seriously highly recommend going to BAND-MAID Prime, because there you can just see MISA play it for yourself. And watching MISA slap during the guitar solo, it's so far beyond my capabilities, and I'm still trying to recover from my mind melting out of my ears while watching this. Trust me, you won't regret it. Now MISA blasts through another new bridge in the song, another absolutely insane chorus, again adding a few new embellishments to spice up the performance, before repeating the 4 passes from the introduction and ending the song with the rest of the band on the of the 4th count, like I talked about in the Akane video. And that's all my little brain's capable of saying about this performance. I think the real point of this video is BAND-MAID Prime is totally worth the $10 US a month, if nothing else just to help support an amazing band that provides so much entertainment and inspiration. So that's where I'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please pound that like button, and if you're still here, you'll probably enjoy what I make on this channel, so why not subscribe and ring that buddy bell? It's free. But I want to again thank all of you amazing patrons. I also want to give a special thanks to my new patrons who hopped on board after my Akane analysis video: Juan San, Rabbi Rabs, Matt, and Drogon R. And Rahim, thank you again for upping your pledge. I was not expecting that. I really appreciate it. So if you're interested in supporting the channel and helping me make more videos like this, or even getting me to make a video that you request, consider joining my Patreon. It's always linked below, and if you don't want a monthly commitment like that, you can check out my website as well for a one-time request or a just because donation. I also just added a new level to my Patreon for only $2 a month, where you get to participate in patron-only polls for helping select future videos that I'm going to make. So that's an option now as well to help support the channel. And now for the What I Learned in Japanese This Week portion of the show. Arigatou gozaimasu. Nihongo ga skoshi wakarimasu. Nihongo ga wakarimasu ka? And that's where I'll wrap it up. So thank you for watching this, and I'll talk to you next time.